සිගරට් එක එක්රැස් කර ගැනීම සඳහා DS ගුණසේකර සමාගමට අනුමත කරනවා.
ඔහු සාමාන්‍ය ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක් විදියට ඔහු රුපියල් මිලියන 3150ක ණය සමස්තයක් තියෙනවා.
India says it is awaiting the confirmation from Sri Lanka on necessary regulatory clearances for Indian COVID-19 vaccine to be exported to sell many South Asian nations to receive the vaccine from tomorrow. Vote requested by opposition to approve the Gazette notification issued to amend the sugar import tax rejected by the ruling party. Cabinet grants approval to implement the recommendations put forth by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into political victimization. India clinches border Gavaskar Trophy. Australia beaten at the Gabba after 32 years.
In the recent past, the government amended special commodity taxes on a number of goods, including the sugar import tax. The relevant Gazette notification was presented in Parliament today for approval. At the conclusion of the debate, the opposition requested for a vote to be held in order to approve the Gazette relating to the amendment of the sugar import tax. However, neither the Leader of the House nor the Speaker consented.
अनुमताई अंक 7 लियागंडක විරුද්ධයි කියලා ලියාගමු. අපි විරුද්ධතාවය සටහන් කරගන්න. අපි අනුමත කරපු එක ආපහු අනුමත කරන්න කියලා ඡන්දයක් ගන්න බෑනේ. එහෙනම් ඊළඟ එකට ඡන්දයක් ගන්න. පහ අනුමත කළා. මම ඉදිරිපත් කරන අංක 6. ආයි. බාව කල්තබීම. I urge the House 20 වෙනි දින පෙරවරු 10 දක්වා පාර්ලිමේන්තුව කල්තබී යුතුයි යෝජනා කරනවා.
The government came under heavy flake recently for amending an import tax on sugar twice, with critics stating that the move had benefited the allies of those in power. The matter was debated in Parliament today as well.
Multinational companies allied with the government, such as the Wilmar company, had imported 102,180 metric tons of sugar within 90 days. The other 14 entities had imported only around 71,366 metric tons of sugar. The former had dominated 59% of the market. Did the Cost of Living Committee meet before deciding the slash of taxes? The concessions have been extended by 3 months. This would mean that the company involved in this will continue to reap profits for another 3 months.
It is only natural for any company, whether it is Wilmar or any other establishment, to gain a lead over their competitors in the market. This situation in the market is created by traders to generate profits. But if any company has committed fraud in terms of tax payments and if they have unlawfully amassed wealth, we challenge the critics to prove it, just as Vasantha Samarasinga has gone to court. We will not interfere with the investigations.
We wish to ask the people whether they were able to purchase sugar at 85 rupees. The treasury had been deprived of revenue amounting to 10 billion rupees. To whom do these funds belong to? The country lost 10 billion that could have otherwise been used for development, welfare activities, improving health facilities and the education sector. Where are the racketeers? It is none other than the Wilmar company. No one else imported these stocks. It was Wilmar that was involved in this under Sajad Mausun, who is a close friend of the government. We are not afraid to divulge these names. He is a very close associate of the president. This is another racket similar to the daylight robbery of the central bank that the government was harping on in the past. The loss is 10 billion. The activities of Perpetual Treasuries Limited have been suspended by the central bank over the bond scam. But where is the money that the country lost due to the sugar scam?
Anura Kumara Disanayake made a revelation in Parliament today, claiming those aligned with the government had obtained a substantial loan from a state bank, declaring that the price of cigarettes will be hiked in the near future.
2020 9වෙනි මාසේ 1 වෙනිදා DS ගුණසේකර ප්‍රයිවට් ලිමිටඩ් කියන සමාගම
A company named DS Gunasekara Private Limited had requested for a loan worth 3.15 billion rupees from the Katuwana branch of the BOC on the 1st of September 2020. Udita Gunasekara, his son, is the current chairman of the Mineral Sands Corporation in Pulmude. In the past, certain MPs I shall not name were residing at our houses owned by him. When stalwarts of the government tour Anuradhapura, they seek lodging at his hotel. Mr. Chairman, a loan of 3.15 billion has been requested from the Katuwana branch of the BOC. I do not think that they can fetch such a value even if they sell the entire bank branch. They request for the loan claiming the price of cigarettes will be hiked through the upcoming budget and that they intend to purchase stocks of cigarettes. Thereafter, the loan of 3.15 billion is approved to purchase the stocks of cigarettes. When approving, the interest rate is stated as AWPR 1%. That means the loan is provided at an interest rate which is usually provided for loyal customers of the bank. The guarantee is the stock of cigarettes. That is then directed to the board of directors. I am thankful for the director named P. Ratnayaka. He has brought forward 3 facts as to why this loan request should be denied. State banks are bound to support the development process of the government. Hence, he has questioned as to how the purchase of a stock of cigarettes ties in with the development process of the government. The intention of the government is to reduce consumption of cigarettes. If so, the BOC granting a loan to purchase a large stock of cigarettes is contrary to the government's policies. The most important fact is the third one. The price of cigarettes increases through higher taxes. If that stock of cigarettes is in the possession of the CTC, the increased tax would translate into a higher revenue for the government. Hence, providing a loan to purchase cigarettes would deprive the government of funds which would otherwise have been received and directed to a private businessman instead. Against such a backdrop, the board of directors approved the loan. I would like to know from either the cabinet or the state minister of finance, how was such a mammoth amount given by the Katuwana branch of the BOC, keeping a stock of cigarettes as a collateral? In the end, he speaks to the Minister of Finance to increase the price of cigarettes. He notifies PB Jayasundara as well. For some odd reason, he does enter the budget speech. Had it been entered, the revenue which was to be received by the government would have been directed to a private entity. I would like to know if this is the government's policy. It intends to impose a tax on goods, while businessmen are being given loans by the BOC. This parliament demands answers.
ලංකා බැංකුවේ ණය දෙනවා. මම දැනගන්න කැමති මුදල් අමාත්‍යවරු මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට උත්තර ලබා දිය යුතුයි.
ඉතාමත්ම සාහසික වරදක් වරප්‍රසාද භාවිතා කරලා මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ දැන් මොහොතකට කලින් කිව්වා.
A grave mistake was made using parliamentary privileges a short while ago. We called the branch in Katuwana. He is an ordinary businessman. He has a total debt of around 3 billion. He has only 300 million left to pay. Do not make baseless allegations.
ඒක වගේ මුදලක් ඔහු සාමාන්‍ය ව්‍යාපාරික කටයුතු කරනවා. ඒ නිසා අභූතතෝ චෝදනා මේ වගේ ව්‍යාපාරිකයන්ට කරන්න එපා.
Meanwhile, MP Nalin Bandara said in Parliament today that there is a cloud of uncertainty over the tender call for purchase of coal at the Norochole coal power plant.
A cabinet paper was put forward yesterday to purchase 300,000 tons of coal for $96. As of now, several other tenders have been cancelled. Those cancelled tenders have been called for $56 to purchase 1 ton of coal. The country will suffer a loss of $30 through this. When you multiply 300,000 by 30, it comes up to a loss of 1.7 billion. Now we can see the direction this government is heading towards.
කෝටි 170කට වැඩි අලාභයක් සිදුවන ගනුදෙනුවක් මේ ගනුදෙනු. මේ ආණ්ඩුව කොහෙද යන්නේ කියන එක අපිට පේනවා.
Can parliamentarian Ranjan Ramanayaka attend parliamentary sittings? A broad discussion on that took place in Parliament today.
මාස 6කට පසුව
Although the National Election Commission has said that his seat will fall vacant in 6 months, we wish to clearly state that we will adopt all legal measures within the democratic framework at such an instance. I wish to ask you as to why Ranjan Ramanayaka was not brought for today's parliamentary sittings.
කැඳුවේ නැති කියන කාරණාව ගැන මම ඔබතුමාගෙන් අහන්නට කැමතියි.
And Parliament has a responsibility in this regard because we have not enacted a law for contempt of court. The prescribed punishment is 2 years or more. There is nothing prescribed. Nothing prescribed in the law because for long Parliament has failed to enact legislation for contempt of court. And by failing to do that, it has been like a freedom of the wild ass. Anything can be given as a sentence. And in English law itself, scandalizing the court is no longer an offence of contempt. Injustice to an honest member of parliament.
Allowing a person to occupy a parliamentary seat is done based on your discretion. Neither the courts nor the Attorney General cannot interfere into this. In the verdict over Andra Bandaranayaka's case, it is clearly stated that the judiciary cannot get involved in parliamentary affairs. During the tenure of Chamal Rajapaksa as Speaker, a court order had been issued to suspend the impeachment of Shirani Bandaranayaka, but he did not stop that. When attempts were made to allow Premalal Jayasekara to attend Parliament, the then Attorney General opposed it. But you disregarded it. This is a verdict of the Supreme Court. Therefore, the Attorney General has issued a clarification over this. We have no issue in allowing Ranjan Ramanayaka to attend Parliament. I hope to visit him in the coming days as well if he is not infected with COVID-19. It was the Supreme Court that issued the verdict in Ranjan Ramanayaka's case. This issue has arisen since there are no superior courts than the Supreme Court. He has been punished for committing contempt of court. The Constitution has not prescribed a punishment that can be meted out for contempt of court.
And I only want to commend the members to read Article 125 of the Constitution, which says the Supreme Court has sole and exclusive jurisdiction to interpret the Constitution. So whatever we may say in this House, eventually the Supreme Court will have to interpret those provisions.
Supreme Court can decide what to be given. I don't say right or wrong. That's the law. That's the part of the Constitution. That's how it is now. So therefore, we can interpret and say that Supreme Court could have given anything.
This situation could have been avoided if he was able to file an appeal. But he cannot turn to any court to seek an appeal. He has not just lost his parliamentary seat, he has also lost his civic rights, including voting, for 7 years. You didn't lose your parliamentary seat on the day in which you were imprisoned. The Secretary General informed the Chairman of the National Election Commission that you lost your parliamentary seat since you had not attended sittings for 3 consecutive months. That was when your seat was replaced. At the time, GLPs brought forward a motion to grant me leave from sittings, but we made a request seeking that I be allowed to attend parliamentary sessions. The Attorney General cited the Constitution and pointed out that I would lose my civic rights for 2 years and that I could not attend parliamentary sittings. The High Court handed out a death sentence against Premalal Jayasekara. From that point onwards, he became a prisoner. He wasn't a parliamentarian at the time, he was only a candidate. If the constitutional provisions that you cited came into effect at the time of announcing the verdict, then he wouldn't have been able to contest the election.
සේකර මන්ත්‍රීවරයාගේ අපේක්ෂකයෙක් වීම සඳහා තියෙන සුදුසුකම් ටික අයින් වෙනවා.
When the verdict was issued on Premalal Jayasekara, his lawyers immediately informed court that their client would appeal against the decision at the appeal court. Premalal Jayasekara then appealed against the sentence immediately. He was sworn in as a parliamentarian only after appealing against it. Even while leaving the court premises after the verdict was issued, he pointed his finger at the court building and said that everyone inside is corrupt. Therefore, I wish to ask the opposition leader whether it would be apt to set a precedent in parliament to the effect that committing contempt of court causes no harm. One must practice good qualities before pointing fingers at anyone else. You are a specialist in bringing disgrace to the parliament. How can you advise us on offending anyone? It was the drug racketeers who went against Ranjan Ramanayaka. They were individuals who were involved in drug trafficking. They had committed murders. They were involved in sand mining as well. This is the apex court. There is no way an appeal can be filed.
We have a statute called ICCPR Act. In that we have accepted a principle that any criminal matter there must be at least one appeal. That has been enacted as law in our country. That is why I said there are a whole lot of lacuna in this area of contempt of court. It is true it is the apex court, but we also have a principle subsequently this parliament has enacted where in any criminal matter there must be at least one appeal. So those are matters that needs to be canvassed in the Supreme Court as to whether the Supreme Court itself can act as an appeal court. In several jurisdictions, the Supreme Court, the highest court, has two divisions. They hear appeals also.
I understand the provisions which Honorable Sumandiran brought to this House, that there is no contempt law in this country. Maybe that's for another day. We might have to discuss that and bring that statute. Until such time, what is there is very clear in the Constitution itself. Supreme Court had done it. Supreme Court is the apex court. Supreme Court has the power. So I am not a great fan of contempt of court. I agree with. But it's also a necessary evil.
If any parliamentarian or party wants to make written submissions, they can do so within the next 2 weeks. Therefore, I would require 3 weeks to issue a final decision on the matter.
Cabinet approval has been granted to implement the recommendations of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to probe incidents of political victimization.
We hope to table it in Parliament and then express our views on the matter. Redress will be granted based on the reports of the Commission that has been submitted to us. This is all we have about this matter. Our government has been in power only for a few months. Therefore, we can't say that it has been delayed extensively. It is unfair to cite delays in this matter, given that it takes about 15 or 20 years to issue court rulings. We hope to reveal it at the earliest. We are not bound to implement it within a day. If anyone is trying to imply that, then it is unfair on us. There is a procedure that needs to be followed once Cabinet grants approval. This process needs to be carried out under the country's laws and the judicial system as well. These are not actions that can be carried out immediately based on personal needs.
ये कैबिनेट එකට ආවා පසුගිය කා දේශපාලන පරිගණින් කමිටුව රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයාගේ දඬුවම් දීපු කමිටුව ඔක්කොම නන්ටි ගාවා දැන් අපේ මහින්දානන්ද අලුත්ගමගේ
Mr. Mahindananda Alutgamage brought up a very important point that was about the report on political victimization tabled in the cabinet. Just because the Presidential Commission was appointed and its report had been approved by the cabinet, can the court cases be cancelled? How can that happen?
පුළුවන් දේ නඩු ටික අයින් කරන්න එහෙම නීතියක් කොහමද මම කියන්නේ බලලා මල්ලෙන් එළියට පනින සීන් එකක් තියෙන්නේ
There are 200 cases. If this is not interference, what is? The cabinet paper was based on an anti-corruption committee involving the misappropriation of state funds. Brace yourselves to appear before that. The anti-corruption committee was appointed following cabinet approval granted under then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe's government. Initially, funds were allocated for the committee under the President's expenditure head. Later on, the expenses were brought under the Prime Minister's expenditure head. There is nothing illegal there. The committee had not acted in the interests of any crimes or offences. It was the police that was involved in the investigations while the Attorney General filed the cases. Therefore, there was no political interference in that. I wish to state that your remarks are incorrect.
We will be back after this short commercial break. Stay tuned.
Struggling to find reliable plumbers, electricians, gardeners and other service providers? Bellboys got you covered.
Welcome back to the news. India has said that it will begin the distribution of vaccines among its neighbouring states from tomorrow. According to the Indian High Commission, Sri Lanka is yet to provide regulatory clearance to receive the vaccine.
The Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka said vaccines will be distributed under a grant assistance to Bhutan, Maldives, Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar and Seychelles. It added that Sri Lanka, Afghanistan and Mauritius are yet to provide the necessary regulatory clearances to receive the vaccine. Issuing a statement, the High Commission noted that the vaccines will be distributed among neighbouring states in a phased manner. It added that the exercise will take place while ensuring that domestic manufacturers have adequate stocks to meet domestic requirements while supplying the jabs to foreign nations.
The Satyagraha campaign staged in Walsapugala Hambantota demanding for solutions to the human-elephant conflict continued today as well.
The Valsapagala village in Habantota is a village in the front lines of the human-elephant conflict, and for many years the people in this village have been living in fear for their lives. The Satyagraha was staged last morning, requesting the proposed wild elephant management reserve be included in the government gazette. Our correspondent said the Satyagraha was staged while adhering to health guidelines.
We have been informing the authorities since 2008. After so many pleas and requests, we decided to take matters into our own hands. We have been informed that in 2 days, the bhikkhus will join the Satyagraha. We request them to look into this at least now.
The movement is supported by 86 agrarian associations in the area. Officers of the Suryavava police arrived at the location to look into the matter today. The Farmers Association said the police officers produced a court order preventing the farmers from launching a proposed vehicular march.
They requested us to halt the vehicle parade to hand over the epistle. They said only 10 people are allowed to come and hand over the epistle.
Minister Nama Rajapaksa expressed these views to Newsfirst on the Satyagraha campaign that is underway.
I feel that the requests of farmers' organizations are extremely reasonable. Since 2012, we have made the relevant arrangements to establish a managed elephant reserve. But unfortunately, steps had not been taken to implement it in the last 5 years. Minister C.B. Ratnayaka had submitted a proposal to the cabinet on this matter recently. Accordingly, the Mahawali ministry has been granted a month to provide its recommendations. During a discussion involving myself and Minister C.B. Ratnayaka, the officials promised that the Mahawali authority will issue the recommendations at the earliest to gazette the elephant reserve. It was during my tenure as the chairman of the District Development Coordinating Committee that the proposal had been put forward, following which mapping had been carried out. Therefore, the requests put forward by farmers are justifiable given these delays. The lives of wild elephants are also at risk. If certain individuals are conducting themselves as per the whims and fancies of individuals who are illegally acquiring large expanses of lands for cultivation, that is very unfair. The law must be enforced to the fullest. I informed the Defence Secretary about this as well. The Defence Secretary and the relevant units will take the relevant action to enforce the law. The demands of farmers are reasonable. We will provide a swift solution to this matter.
Meanwhile, a police unit was established within the Ministry of Lands. The unit was established to investigate and take legal action regarding the misuse of lands that come under the purview of the Land Reform Commission. The unit will function under the supervision of retired Senior Inspector General of Police, Sumit Edirisinghe.
I request you to report all incidents relating to lands owned by institutions under this ministry as soon as possible. We established this police investigation unit and the people can reach them and report incidents of the misuse of lands under the Land Reform Commission via the hotline 1938.
Bimal Ratnayaka of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna made a revelation about a possible connection between the steps taken concerning land and the stock market.
The stock market of the country is performing well now. All those who engage in businesses genuinely are intimidated by this hype. I spoke to a few of them to get information about this. They are all afraid of the situation, wondering if this hype is a result of some illegal activity. Businesses aren't flourishing now, but the stock market is doing well. You might have seen how the cabinet approved certain things recently. The cabinet amended 4 land acts. They announced that these decisions were made to expedite the process of acquiring lands. You know that the farmers in India have been protesting for more than 60 days. Even they are talking about 3 acts. This government is doing exactly what Modi's government is doing in India, where large-scale corporations can acquire lands. If anyone is trying to acquire a land, nobody can file a case in courts. Narendra Modi has recommended an intermediary board instead. They have to approach this board. They are taking away the right to go to courts in the guise of expediting the process. The current government is doing it without MCC. Gotabaya Rajapaksa was the only president in the history who delisted 700,000 acres of forest lands. When the stock market is being artificially uplifted, the wealthy friends of the government are continuing to reap its benefits. If you analyze the stock market, you will know that most companies have increased their profits. The land laws are being changed to serve the requirements of these company owners. The forest lands were also delisted for this purpose.
While there's a public discourse about lands, there is also a discussion about granting 49% stake of the East Container Terminal to the Adani Group in India. A group of civil and political activists, together with the Frontline Socialist Party, staged a protest opposing the move opposite the Indian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka today. The protest was also staged in support of the farmers' protest in India, opposing the amended Land Acts that benefit Adani Group and other large-scale corporations.
The Adani Group is attempting to obtain the East Container Terminal. It is the corporation that is trying to rob the lands of the farmers in India. The protest staged against the Adani Group killed more than 70 farmers. Our leaders are narrating fairy tales to us about this company and how it will develop the East Container Terminal when this same company has ill-treated the people of its own country. We will join hands with all forces to prevent this from taking place.
Meanwhile, the General Secretary of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna also spoke about the East Container Terminal.
We have to save the port from Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was ironically elected to save the country. If handing over 49% ownership of the East Container Terminal and its administration to the Adani Group is called neither a sale nor a lease, is it a bribe? Or is it a donation? They have been influenced and they are now handing this 49% stake as a bribe to the Indian Adani Group. Vanilatho had mentioned that there is no point in erecting scarecrows and blaming the pigs when pigs from India are also destroying the crops.
The Sinhala organization made a revelation during a media briefing today.
Especially if you take the People's Bank, it is on the board of directors in many institutions. It is when he was the chief of the audit firm known as who handled the contract of cleaning Ranil Wickramasinghe and the lot when they were brought to court for the bond scam. This aforementioned audit firm submitted a report on this to the courts, quoting that no such misdeeds have been committed. Therefore, we have a burning question on how the person who cleaned the messes of the Yahapalane government got appointed as the of the People's Bank under this government. Has used one of his friends to demand a commission for a loan worth $250 million from the Muscat Bank. He used the famous for this. What kind of authority does he have to speak to the Muscat Bank and make deals amounting to large sums? What authority does he have to demand such a massive sum as a commission? An investigation needs to be carried out regarding these massive bribes being demanded. Of the People's Bank is obtaining a loan assistance of 25 million rupees at an interest rate of 4% for a private institution headed by him. There is no approval from the People's Bank in obtaining it. It didn't receive approval from the board as well. We didn't bring this government to power to protect thieves. Therefore, the mastermind of this financial terrorism owns another company known as Liberty Holdings Private Limited, which has taken a loan of 1.06 billion rupees in 2016. Now, as a group director of Liberty Holdings Private Limited, he is rescheduling the day of payment to the bank using his influence.
The central bank forecasts Sri Lanka's economy to grow by 6% in 2021.
The central bank also said discussions with the People's Bank of China for a $1.5 billion swap is in its final stages and could be expected as soon as in 2 weeks. A $1 billion swap with the Reserve Bank of India is also pending approval. The central bank also responded to money laundering concerns over the surge experienced in the Colombo Stock Exchange during the past several weeks.
කොටස් වෙළඳපොළ වෙත විශාල වශයෙන් මේ කාලේදී මුදල් ගලා ඒම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඇතැම් පාර්ශව කරන චෝදනාවක් තමයි මෙතන අලුසල්ලි සුදු කිරීමක් සිදු වෙන බව. මේ ගැන මූල්‍ය බුද්ධි ඒකකයේ ප්‍රතිචාරය කුමක්ද?
All the money that comes to the stock market comes through banking channels. Already FIU has issued guidelines and different directions and instructions how a bank should kind of do their due diligence and whatever the kind of reporting that is they have to do to the FIU. So banks are following those instructions, and FIU will also do their normal assessments.
Will the EPF be entering the stock market soon? Is there a danger of the fund buying overvalued businesses given the recent market boom?
Monetary Board is the trustee of the funds of the EPF. So based on that responsibility, the Monetary Board has given the approval for an investment policy and investment guidelines. So the EPF at the central bank, they are the kind of operating authority of the Monetary Board instructions. So they are having their investment committees on a daily basis, and they make decisions evaluating the investment opportunities based on their investment portfolio. So they have been kind of investing in different assets. They have been investing in equity market, and also recently there have been certain transactions that have happened.
Real interest rates, real returns on government securities are negative at the moment. Is the EPF also having a negative real return?
9.25% was paid for 2019. And for 2020, because only when the financial accounts are available, audited and available, only the EPF can decide the final return. But they have been paying a budgeted rate of 9% for 2020. So there is no negative return on the EPF as of now.
As at the end of September 2020, equity instruments held by the EPF in the Colombo Stock Exchange reported a mark-to-market loss of approximately 20.65 billion rupees.
The Colombo Stock Exchange fell 1.4% from a record high yesterday as some high-performing stocks lost steam to profit-taking.
The all-share price index lost 113.69 basis points today, down 1.43% compared to yesterday. The benchmark index reached its all-time high yesterday, closing in at 7,922.66 points. The top gainers are SMB Leasing, EB Creasy, Industrial ASPH, Pan-Asia Bank, Amana Bank, Loves Power, Nation Lanka Commercial Bank and Sampat Bank. Top 10 losers were Palm Garden Hotel, LOLC Finance, Commercial Leasing and Finance, Durden, Tess Agro, LOLC Development Finance, LOLC Holdings, Brown & Company PLC, Valuable One PLC and Jess Tetner of Ceylon PLC.
Views regarding the opening of the tourism industry were discussed at the cabinet meeting today.
What are the international airlines which have already agreed to resume flights?
All the airlines who are willing to come to Sri Lanka, we welcome them. And anybody can come to Sri Lanka. Before the COVID situation, there were about 26 flights regularly came to Sri Lanka. During the COVID time, it came down to 7 airlines. I'm talking about the passenger airlines, not the cargo. So after 21st of January, we are hoping that all the airlines will come to Sri Lanka.
What are these 7 airlines? I mean, have you spoken to them? I mean, does it include...
We had a discussion with all the airlines, country managers, and we have explained how we are going to operate the system. And they have accepted our proposal and they are working on it. And even yesterday we had a discussion with the Emirates, and they are prepared to come to Sri Lanka with the major airlines like Singapore Airlines and other airlines.
When you keep these hotels, the 51 hotels are going to be out of bounds for Sri Lankans. Is it practically possible to keep the locals out of the hotels?
We have selected 153 qualified for 153 qualified for safe and secure hotels, and from out of that 53 hoteliers, they accepted our offers and they are willing to come as a stage 1 hotel. Stage 1 hotel means that they can't accommodate Sri Lankan, and only the foreigners who come from the first 14 days, they have to spend in that stage 1 hotels. But we have kept it open for the other hoteliers. There are about 3,300 hoteliers who are registered on the tourist board, and we have given the offer to them as well. But most of the hoteliers, they are not willing to take that offer because they are having weddings and all etc. So at the moment they are about 53. And we have kept it open, and the others also can join us.
Now, you want to keep tourists and locals out, but in some of the hotels, especially beach hotels, how do you prevent vendors coming and accessing these people? Because these some of the vendors, also, obviously they have a practical problem. So how do you balance this?
We have appointed senior DIG for the tourism. We had a discussion with them because once we identify the hotels, if it's the beach side, the vendors and them, they can't come near that area. So the police will look after that area, and they are given the cover to us.
A US-Sri Lanka dialogue has been organized ahead of the US President-elect Joe Biden's swearing-in ceremony tomorrow. The discussion will be co-hosted by Sri Lanka's Pathfinder Foundation and the US-based Asia Society Policy Institute.
The dialogue, co-hosted by Sri Lanka's Pathfinder Foundation and the US-based Asia Society Policy Institute, will involve former senior state officials and civil society representatives as well. It is expected to provide policymakers of the US and Sri Lanka with a better understanding of the ground situation, the challenges, opportunities and priorities that have an effect on the ties between both nations. The Barack Obama administration's Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, Robert O. Blake Jr., will lead the U.S. delegation. Bernard Gunathilaka, a former Foreign Secretary and Ambassador to the U.S., will head the Sri Lankan delegation. The conclusions reached during the discussion will be presented to both governments for consideration.
And that's a wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For all the news, we'll see my Mazra San with our sign language interpreter, Brian D. Chris. Take very good care of yourself and good night.